Kathy.
This is related, but not directly to our budget per se, but I met with a long-term legislator today, and we were talking about the whole thing that has happened to cities and the whole LGA issue, and I guess I was not aware, and so this gives me a little bit of hope, emphasis on a little bit, that in the last basically 8 years, it has been attempted, apparently behind the scenes, to do some restructuring of LGA, and then it gets as far as the governor and goes kafook, flat. So I think we should stay on the train of trying to get that reformulated, because, let's face it, they pulled market value homestead credit from us because they had already beaten up LGA as much as they thought they could get away with. And the more they do that, the more they pit cities against each other, and that's unproductive for everybody. So after tomorrow, of course, we'll know what we're working with, but it's just, I think we should bear in mind that we might want to put some more pressure on our local legislators and anyone else we know in the legislature to be seriously looking at reformulating that, and that the needs assessment is still from back when this was done in the 70s. Well, that's ridiculous, because first of all, as we all know, some of the suburbs are now having the same issues as core cities, and one of the originators of the LGA formula was to help with needs base, and that core cities have bigger needs because they have greater populations and blah, blah, blah. I mean, if you look at the whole thing where you're talking about the greatest number of kids in school, and therefore, and we have medical centers here in the Twin Cities, blah, 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 that impacts us because the people with the greater needs end up here. And so instead of pitting against each other, we should be trying to find some way to make this work for a greater number of us. And when LGA came to be, it did work. But it hasn't evolved with the cities and the needs. So I think we need to apply some pressure down the line.
Mr. Hall.
Mr. Mayor and Council, I think we've heard you. We will prepare a budget based upon the 5% levy. This discussion that you're having this evening is one that you will have 5 weeks from tonight and make your final decision. What we wanted to do is use this time to get you prepared for those items, make sure that you didn't want us to revise the budget as it was there. I know there's some disagreement on the council. That's something that you will work through on December 6th. So I know we're kind of running out of time, Mr. Mayor. We have 3 other items we'd like to get to tonight. So
press ahead, please.
Thank you. Item 3, I think, is Taste of Maplewood, and I think Ms. Guilfoyle can give us a brief report on that.
Briefly noted. Thank you, Mayor. Members of the Council, before you is just a little bit of a report regarding the 2010 Taste of Maplewood event. As you're well aware, the event has grown in scope and size since the first one that was held in 2007, and we did have a 2-day event this year. I think in most areas the event was successful. We had budgeted $35,000 for the event. We took in about $31,000 of revenue, and our expenditures were about $71,000. So we ran over. Actually, I think it was $11,333. And I've outlined in the report where we feel, well, where we know actually, because after I got all the expenses, went through and kind of categorized them. And one of the lessons that we learned was we had tried to just allow everyone to come into the event. As many vendors as wanted to come, we just let them all come. And I think one of the things, and I've met with several of the larger vendors, that was a problem because, say, we had, I'll take Maui Wowie, for example. They've always been with us from the beginning, and they do the wonderful smoothies. Well, we had 3 other people that were doing smoothies. And so he was kind of disturbed by that and told me that he wouldn't come back, you know, because if you're going to have that many, then he doesn't make as much money. Well, in our effort to open it up to everybody, we opened it up to too many, and then some of the vendors didn't make as much money as they had hoped. So that's definitely one thing. If we get the go light to do this again next year, that we will change. We'll probably limit we had 97 vendors, including 48 food, 18 crafters, 19 marketplace, and 12 sponsors and businesses. And that doesn't include our entertainment. So we would probably cut that in less than half, especially for our food vendors. The other issue was we provided power for some of the vendors, and then they told us, you know, they filled out the form and said, we need this much of an ampage. Well, when they got here, it was like way more than that. And so at the end of the day of the event, we had all these vendors coming in and didn't have enough power, and just kind of went bonkers with people running to get generators. We even had our city attorney go to Blaine and get a couple of generators. So in looking back on it, we spent about $8,300 just on gasoline and generators. And so that definitely was something that put us over. What we would do in the future, and I have met with the individual that does generators for Shoreview and, oh shoot, I just forgot the other city that he does. We met with him, and what we would propose is that we not provide generators for anyone except for the entertainment and the lights for the fields for next year. And the report is for your review, but specifically we need to authorize the transfers. Pardon me?
We'll have to do that at the next council.
Council
At the
can't
next
make
council
action
meeting.
tonight,
Yeah,
so
to
that'd
make-
be a direction.
Right. So for the next meeting, you would find this on the consent agenda to authorize the transfer from the general fund, but not to confuse that it was $65,000 for both years is what needs to be transferred. We were actually under budget in 2009 and over budget in 2010. So after your discussion tonight, and we'll just kind of fill out which way that goes, but what we would want to do is bring a resolution authorizing the Taste of Maplewood event for the 2011 year. It'll be August 19th and 20th if you approve it, and so that we can start booking bands. We do have $35,000 budgeted, and we have 2 sponsors that are waiting to see if we are going to have the event. So that's where we are at this time.
All right, so council, we have a short period of time, so let's not pontificate for long periods of time. One of you two, go ahead.
Go ahead, Mark.
You said you had $35,000 budgeted for this? And then we went over that by 11,000? So it's $46,000 it cost us then? Okay, thank you.
So this was related to that. You said at the beginning, I didn't get that. I wasn't writing fast enough. What was the revenue generated by the event?
There's approximately $31,000 that we got from vendors and from sponsors.
And then 31,000 revenue, and then the net loss was 46,000. Is that right?
No, the net loss was $11,333.
No, but that included the 35 that you had in the budget.
That was
So,
budgeted.
hey,
Right.
So you spent $46,000 of tax dollars on Taste of Maplewood in 2010.
Right. So I'm kind of trying to evaluate it
Right.
like as a business enterprise.
Yes.
So it had revenue of 31,000. It had expenditure of 31,000 plus 46,000, and so business-wise, it was an operating loss of $46,000, of which we expected to lose 35,000.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay. So I know that time is short, so I'm going to try to keep this brief. This doesn't work. Last year when we looked at this, there was the idea to move it to 2 days and to try to ramp it up to a higher level to, sort of we're going to make it up on volume theory, if you've ever heard the old salesman joke. The problem is we doubled the size, and we more than doubled the amount that it's costing the taxpayers. And certainly, there were a lot of people last year who were upset about losing 4th of July fireworks, which they had long enjoyed as an event that cost us, I'm recalling something in the neighborhood of about $20,000 or so, 25. And the argument that I would give people was, we're giving that up for Taste of Maplewood because Taste of Maplewood has a bigger revenue base and it's going to be paying for itself, and we can't afford to be subsidizing that amount of cost. So I really thought, our plan was to invest the $35,000, but that we should be aiming to be coming in with much of that ultimately coming back through success. And instead, we were going in the wrong direction. I talked to one vendor whose business I patronize weekly, who was there at the show to ask about their feeling on it, and their basic reaction was, well, it's young, it's new, we're willing to go a couple times, but it didn't really work out for us on its own basis this year. I think for anything as an event, if you're going into your 5th year and people are still trying to give it that startup thing, this is sort of the fish or cut bait point in a business venture. And my feeling is that we need to let it go. We gave it a great shot, a great attempt, but it doesn't seem to be working out, and I'm concerned that it's a cost that we just can't afford to have right now. And I would be open to a debate on whether or not we can afford to do the 4th of July fireworks if we don't have this as our community event, but I'm afraid I don't think the Taste can keep going.
Mr. Lannis.
I had written one note on mine as well, and that was related to the firework conversation that Mr. Nephew had. But I think it's difficult to have a conversation about this without having individuals who have vested so much of their time, energy, expertise into this, without having it come off as perhaps an assessment on them and their staff that did this. And it seems like only if there was an $11,000 shortage, there was $8,000 some dollar unexpected with the power issues and the gas and the generators and things like that. So taking that out of the equation, there was a little bit of a makeup of that $11,000 or over budget or under revenue. I would say that I would be in support of a Taste of Maplewood in a different form. Perhaps a couple alternatives for the council to debate and to take a look at a $65,000 taxpayer deduction and then budgeting for $35,000 for next year. Seems a bit high, but I do believe in the concept. I do believe in the idea. I just think maybe there's a different way to go about it. And I appreciate Mr. Nephew's comments that, well, we've given this a run 5 years in a row and we've tried different things, and so I would be in support of including fireworks on a much different scale for the city.
Ms. Ginman.
Well, I guess I don't count the same as John does. It hasn't been in the same format for 5 years, and so we're not comparing apples to apples. If we compare 2007 to 2010, that doesn't make any sense. I talked to Chuck about this earlier today. I would be willing to give it another year and give it a more limited budget. And as Mr. Lannis pointed out, there were things like the power issue that you just learn by doing. And if you never experiment with anything like that, and I don't, now I'm going to hear like, you think you can experiment with our money? Yes, I do. If you're trying to promote your city, to give it a name, to get people to come, and I'm sorry, but I don't want to go back to the 4th of July fireworks, okay? Because we've already not done that one year. So if we do it again and then we decide to do something bigger and then we have to take it away again, count me out. You can stand over by Maplewood Mall and look north and see White Bears, and you can look west and see Rosevilles. It's not like people don't have somewhere to go for the 4th of July. I think if you're trying to make yourselves a target for people to come, we've done this now. We did it on a bigger scale this year. Shoreview has blown people's socks off in the past with theirs, and it started a lot smaller than it is now. But I don't want it to be this big an expense either, but I'm not willing to pull the plug on it until we've given it another chance to scale down what we did this year as far as expenditures and see if it attracts a greater number of people. But I think the competition on 4th of July is overwhelming, and that had its course here. It was very successful for several years, and then the attendance at the daytime stuff before that, fireworks, fizzled over time, and it's because people have too many places to go. So if we're trying to make ourselves on the map for a civic targeted celebration, we need to try and do it with this, because to go back to joining everybody else on 4th of July makes no sense to me whatsoever. And we can't use any excuses about, no downtown and all that, because other suburbs have